Hello, and welcome to Simplify TV, the web series and podcast for agencies, brands, marketers, and media buyers. I'm Ann Krause. My guest today is Andrew Davis. He is a best-selling author and keynote speaker. Before building and selling a thriving digital marketing agency, Andrew produced for NBC and worked for the Muppets. He's appeared in the New York Times and on the Today Show. He's crafted documentary films and award-winning content for tiny startups and Fortune 500 brands. Today, Andrew teaches business leaders how to grow their businesses, transform their cities, and leave their legacy. Andrew, welcome to Simplify TV.
Thanks, Ann. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we are not living in a very patient time in society, yet you encourage agencies and brands to step back and look at smaller actions that have bigger impacts. How can you convince marketers that this is a good strategy? And maybe there's an example you can share on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think we're always excited about getting our brand name out there and making people aware that we're out there, and in the hopes that awareness is going to really drive the bottom line. And yes, it can. But I think we spend a huge amount of time forgetting about the customers we actually have already acquired, and we don't do enough to market to them. So there are simple things we can do, like raise anticipation for the next product or service that you have coming out, or you can maximize their honeymoon phase. I mean, reviews and ratings are such a big part of the consumer world today that we've got to really get people when they're most excited. So like an easy example actually is Rent the Runway, for example. Rent the Runway knows that the big difference between what they do, if you're not familiar with Rent the Runway, by the way, for those listeners or viewers out there, Rent the Runway basically allows you to get a gown, or, for a special occasion, and they send it to you, and then you send it back. So you don't have to buy a designer gown for a wedding or a rehearsal dinner. Anyway, what they do is they know when you go to that event. They know the exact event date. So they know that you're going to be most excited about the gown you rented like the day after, the morning after. So they email you the morning after and they say, hey, I bet you had a great time last night. I hope you have some wonderful pictures. And you can imagine that woman like scrolling through her phone, looking at the amazing pictures in her gown last night. And they say, please, would you take a second to review the gown you wore and maybe upload your favorite picture of how you looked in it? And all of a sudden they get 5-star reviews with glowing emotional language. And this is very different than someone, say, Nordstrom. If you had bought the dress at Nordstrom or any other kind of department store, they don't know when you're going to wear it. So we have to maximize the honeymoon phase as much as possible. And these little things can make a huge difference. So I know we're really excited about branding and building, our business, but don't forget about the customers you already have, because they can make a huge impact in that next purchase for someone else.
I love the phrase honeymoon. The honeymoon stage. That's so true. And of course, the pictures are going to be amazing. She's going to be so excited to send those pictures in.
Exactly. You're like, I look amazing. They actually call it.
I look so great.
They call that moment, that time where they try to get the review, they call it the after party glow moment. And they're trying very hard to predict when they will be at the peak of their enthusiasm. So the reviews are amazing. And if you read them, you'll see that people who had a bad experience, I mean, honestly, they'll say like the dress was too long and it didn't fit very well, and I had to use some tape to hold it up, appropriately. But then they'll still give it 5 stars and say it was the best dress I ever wore, and I got so many compliments, and check out the picture.
Okay, so they know what they're doing. Yes. So transforming a city,
Yes.
that seems like a big ask for brands. What do you recommend as a first step?
Oh, the first step is really easy. Any brand today can actually differentiate themselves by telling us where you do business. Because I know we live in a global, marketplace where you can buy stuff from anywhere. But one of the easiest ways to differentiate what you do and who you serve and how you do it and how you build it and how you buy it is to tell people where you're based and why you are there. So here's the challenge to everybody today. I would go check your about page for your business. Go down the long list of stuff for your vision and your mission and your core values and your team, your executive team. I know that's all there. But do you tell people why you do business, where you do business? And if you have multiple locations, tell us why you're there. It actually can make a huge difference in leaving a legacy and making people proud that you serve not just their community, but the communities that you're in.
That is great advice because you're right. We're so global that I'm always scrolling down to the bottom of a site saying, I wonder where this company is.
That's exactly. And I'm always wondering, why are they there? And this can add a huge amount of cachet to the business you do. If you're based in Minnesota, it's the origin of where flour was invented. So if you flour, FLOUR, so if you're a bakery, tell us you're based there, and yes, you ship all over the world, but it's because there's a historical precedence for greatness in baking that came out of Minnesota. That's the kind of thing that will transform your brand. Beef jerky, the beef jerky capital of the world is Minong, Wisconsin. And there's a reason they are there. They just need to share the story. It can create a real emotional branded attachment, not just to the brand, but the place. And your diehard consumers, they will want to come visit. It will transform the place you do business, but also the business you do.
Let's move on to AI in marketing. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. Friend or foe?
Friend, 100%. I'm a huge advocate. Let me just quickly say, Ann, I think the emotional roller coaster you go on when you try AI, it essentially starts with oh my gosh, it's magic, right? Then you try to do something that that you really want it to do, and you're like, oh, it's so stupid. And then all of a sudden it'll deliver a stroke of genius where you're like, wow, that's better than I could come up with in a tenth or a millionth of the time frame. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's no room for creativity and marketing anymore. My job is going to be taken away. And you kind of go through this cycle constantly where you're amazed, and then you think it's stupid, and then you're like, it's going to take over the world, and the robots are coming, and then you're like, it's magic. And so it's vacillated, but I've gotten to the point where I do love it, and I find that it's magic most of the time if you use it the right way.
How would you recommend to marketers to kind of, I guess, get to know it to use it the right way?
Well, okay. I think the first mind shift you need to take, there's two things. The first mind shift you need to have is to not treat it like Google. You don't need to engineer the perfect prompt and try to get it to do what you want it to do in one big statement. I think that's false, right? I've had the most success by actually biting off really small tasks, like just to write a video script of a very specific type, or write an intro paragraph for a blog post. And then I've given it lots of samples. You have to kind of feed it samples of how you want it done and how you've done it in the past, and then have it evaluate the way it does it and you do it and those differences, and then have it try again. Remember, AI learns. So I think you can make yourself a more valuable asset to your organization by tasking it out with squirrel-sized tasks. And I say squirrel-sized because the size of ChatGPT 4 today is about the size of a squirrel-sized brain. So think of your task as very small tasks and really train it to do things the way you do it. And all of a sudden, you become a more valuable asset because you've got a bunch of AI you've trained to help you do your job better and faster and more efficiently, but with your intellectual property at work. So I kind of envision a future where it's not going to take our jobs, but when you're hiring someone, for instance, you're going to be hiring them plus the AI that they've trained and they own to do a better job faster, and even invite more creativity. Because I think my digital doppelganger, that's what I call him, his name's Drew Dini, and I've trained him to be like the best, most supportive creative partner ever. And so he's constantly saying, yes, Ann, that was a great idea. Yes, keep it going.
It's like a BOGO when you hire somebody, right? You buy one, get one. You get the hiree and their extra AI intelligence. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So I think there's a future there that just makes us much better at what we do. AI today just spits out, like, I would call it C- work. It's not great work, but when you train it to do the work the way you do it, using your tone and mimicking your style and imitating you, all of a sudden you can get it to do your version of A+ level work pretty efficiently. As long as it's squirrel-sized tasks. Don't try to get it to write a book for you. Even if you train it, it's pretty difficult. I've tried.
I'm going to look at squirrels totally different now. Squirrels, I'm going to be like, okay, I understand now. So, Andrew, do you have, I know that you are published yourself and you do all kinds of keynote speeches and everything, but do you have a podcast or a book or something that's been instrumental in your success?
Ooh. Yes. This is the book, The Wizard of Ads. If you haven't read The Wizard of Ads, it's turning words into magic and dreamers into millionaires. Anytime I'm uninspired, I open it up to a little chapter and I find just sheer wisdom. I've had it for 20 years. It's by Roy H. Williams. And if you haven't read it, read it.
You pulled it right out there. Perfect. Now, what is the best way? Because I know people are going to want to get to know you a little bit more. What's the best way for viewers to learn more about you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. Like, just search Andrew Davis and then look for the headshot that has an orange bow tie on, or blue bow tie, depending on the week. Or you can check me out at akadrewdavis.com, like also known as drewdavis.com. And those are the two best ways to find me.
Andrew, thank you so much for being my guest on Simplify TV. This was fun.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you, Ann.
And thank you all for watching. Simplify TV is sponsored by Simplify, helping you to maximize relevance and multiply results with our industry-leading media buying and workflow solutions. For more information, visit simply.fi. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Ann Krause, and I look forward to seeing you next time.